Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Inspired Life Vancouver, where on a weekly basis we bring inspiring locals who are doing amazing work. We hope this conversation today inspires you, empowers you, and motivates you. If it does, please make sure to get in touch. Joining me right now, I'm so excited. This individual, he's an inspiring filmmaker. He creates these beautiful, picturesque films, content. Last time we saw each other was in Uzbekistan, the other side of the planet, and we have not really seen each other. I think we ran into each other in Vancouver somewhere.
Sometime in Vancouver,
yes,
yeah.
but not really had a proper conversation since Uzbekistan. And I knew I wanted to have him on the show because I love the content that he creates. He's worked with some amazing brands, made some beautiful short films. I'm talking about Justis Cooper, or on social media known as Justis. We'll tag him so you know how to connect. Thank you so much for you're flying today and you took the time to come out. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Like, I'm honored to honestly have a conversation and actually catch up with you. And if this is the setting that it requires to catch up, then I'm so into it. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I love it. So I just recently got your bio and I was shocked to discover you worked for the Coast Guard. Wow.
Yes, that is something that I don't.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, it's something I don't actually share a ton with people because I don't know. I guess they don't really ask, or there's no room to really tell them about it. But like, yeah, when I was 20 and I was just not sure what I was doing with my life, and I was kind of getting into some, bad things as you do when you're 19 or 20. My mom kind of said that I needed to go to university or just get out of where I was growing up, and somehow I landed in marine engineering school with the Coast Guard. So from 20 until 24, I trained in Nova Scotia for marine engineering, all sorts of incredible, amazing courses about marine engineering and electronics and just how to run an engine room on a ship. And that was that was my first career for sure. And that took a big part of my 20s before I found the camera and the creativity side of me.
That is so cool. And I know you were mentioning earlier that you were in the boiler room, but it did take you places.
Yes.
And it took you outdoors. And in Canada, we're so blessed to have this beautiful natural abundance. BC, 100%. We're so lucky to have this natural abundance all around us. Speaking of which, we were talking about this earlier. Last night, I was perusing through your social media and saw this beautiful film that you created that was your love letter to BC. You truly have a gift because with the narration and the way you edited it, it's so beautiful, and it's got this, I feel the love, I feel the romance with nature and BC. You feel
I can so much.
I can sense your passion for that. Now, did you go to film school? How did you get into the visual arts?
A great question. There's never been any formal training. It's all been through experience with close friends of mine, or just, I would say, I have a degree in YouTube, as in I was just like, you find something you're passionate about, and I just spent so many hours like figuring out how to just be creative and learn and seeing things that like out there that I've wanted to create. Like, how do I get to that point where I can tell a story like that? But it all actually started, like, as I said, like, I worked for the Coast Guard, never really had a camera in my hands, but I would spend a lot of my time traveling the world in my 20s because I worked 1 month on the ship and then I had a month free. So I would go traveling a lot, and eventually ended up joining this YouTube group called High on Life. Some close friends of mine started it, and I would spend a lot of my off time traveling with them. And they were pioneering the travel space as far as like shooting and getting things covered or paid for to go travel the world. And I was like, how is this possible? This is like a dream. Like, how does this make any sense? And that was my kind of injection into the creative world. And they just showed me, like, I didn't really use the camera all that much. I was more in front of the camera and helping with, like, finding the comments and like managing some of their social channels. But I was always like curious to know what went on behind the scenes with the cameras and everything. So I started learning a little bit from them, and eventually when I started like seeing how they would get from like a raw image to a beautiful creation, or like bunch of day of shooting, and it would become this like daily vlog. I was like, how do you do that? This is so
Hmm.
cool. And I guess at some point I took the leap of faith to start working with them full time, and then took a temporary 6 months away from the Coast Guard, and I ended up never going back.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, a High on Life, tell us a bit more about that. Like, I've seen the beautiful social media content, and which really immediately makes me want to renew my passport. I know. Can you believe it? My passport is expired.
Whoa,
I
you
need.
should
I
stop
know.
this. You should go deal with that right now.
Yes, today my makeup is done. Hair is good. We're gonna do new passport photos. It's gonna happen.
Perfect. I'll hold you to that.
Yeah, thank you. Um, as you were saying that, it really made me think of how going from like back in the day, you had these advertising agencies that would hire this talent to make this content for ads, and how things have shifted.
Absolutely.
And how we met in Uzbekistan, and we were so fortunate to be invited by the country. And then I know people from there went on to go to Saudi Arabia and Maldives, and like all these amazing, Georgia, like these amazing countries, and have these experiences, and they're getting paid, and everything is taken care of, and you're like, wow, this is the world we live in. Like, this earth, this life is so phenomenal. And I love that name, High on Life.
Truly.
So tell us a bit more. I know you're not working with them anymore, but tell me a bit about that experience and what that was like for you.
Yeah, so like for context, High on Life was started by these three guys, Parker, Alexi, and Riker, that met in high school, and one of them had a like one of those dad cams, and they would just film like, like guys in the Jackass era would film doing fun things of like shopping carts and like doing flips, but they would do all their school projects with the videos. Like they would beg to their teachers, like, I don't want to do an essay, I want to actually do a film project on it. And they just were doing all these skits. And from high school, it turned into, and this is like obviously pre-YouTube, pre any social media. So they were just doing videos for themselves, but also to show their friends and family. Like they made a movie, they made a skit, they made a thing, right? And eventually YouTube came out, and they just started posting random videos on YouTube. And one day, like maybe, I'm not even sure, like 2010 maybe, like one video went viral, and it was just them doing a dance to some Indian music, and it just went viral, and it took off, and they started realizing that there was something there. They weren't getting paid for anything yet, but they were realizing that there was some power in this, how many people they could see this video, and like in the matter of just like a week, like there's millions of people. It's incredible. So they went off traveling the world, started gaining a following, started gaining some traction with all their videos, and then crafted a name. It used to be called Sunday Fun Days, but then it moved on to High on Life. And while I was in university for the Coast Guard, I would come back and be like, you guys were just like 9 months all over the world. Like, that's what I want to do. And I remember my second year, Alexi tapped me on the shoulder and said, do you want to quit and join us? And I was like, I kind of want to finish this. I kind of want to, and I didn't really know what my role would be. So I did continue school. But after the fact, when they stopped traveling the world and they came back home and just kind of looked at what they had done, they had created a travel brand. They started getting things paid for and getting paid to travel, and they never thought it was possible, but they were just at the forefront of it happening. So it never really started out being a travel brand. It was just like them having fun making videos, but because of the trips that they went on, they just got known for that kind of work. So yeah, and the name High on Life is so on point for what it was. It was just like these guys were just full of life, full of love for the world, very curious too. Like I think a lot of the time we would have people that would see us, and like four Caucasian guys maybe assume that we're these bros or these trust fund kids, but like and that's what a lot of people thought about us, but when they would actually get to know the type of content they would come out with, it was just like, no, we were curious about culture, we're curious about about life's biggest questions, and and different foods and connecting with people and like bringing people into the love and abundance that they had. And like they were talking about law of attraction before I even knew that book existed. Like they were like, I would say decades or years above in front of anything that I ever saw before. So it was really great having friends that grew me as a person, but we're just putting amazing stuff out there that wasn't just about like, look at us, we're doing cool things. It was about look at us, grow with us, travel with us, come join us on a trip if you want to. And I think it really helped a lot of people
And
get out of
also
their comfort zone.
opening people's eyes,
Yeah.
because I find that sometimes, of course, we're so grateful to live here. I was born in Pakistan, moved to Canada at 17. I'm so grateful to have my Canadian passport, which is expired, which we will get a new
we'll
one.
get it back.
But to travel with that, it makes
Yeah.
such a difference. Yet there's something spectacular that happens when we go to different places. You know, whether it's like I remember going to Cambodia, going, you know, Siem Reap and Bali many times, or Uzbekistan, or I'm sure you guys have been to like so many more places than I have, but like every experience, how much it enriches us. And when we actually take the time to understand their culture and then to see that we have more in common as human beings, even though we may speak different languages, but the desire to connect,
100%.
the desire to share, and also enjoy life, you know, to the best of our abilities.
I'm still convinced that like traveling the world is some of the best education you can get about yourself. Putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and learning how to navigate those is such a great way to figure out things in your own life. And like what you said about understanding and compassion, like every time I left and visited a new culture, sometimes more conservative than others, or just had a very different way of living life, you look at it and you don't be judgmental. You're like, oh, this is very interesting. This is the way they do things. And you come back home and you apply that to the world around you. And I think it's like, I needed that. I grew up in a small community and everything like that. And like parents were loving and everything, but I didn't understand the world as much as I do now because I wasn't going to Southeast Asia or South America or Europe or everywhere. And like, I just took so many lessons back with me that I think I can apply to my everyday life at home. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I think that's the power I feel of like social media, where, you know, before we had television or movies where these big production companies would share, and for me, I learned English by watching movies.
Wow, okay,
Yes.
because like no accent was so
Yeah.
beautiful, yeah.
Thank you. So I grew up in Pakistan. We had 2 channels, and we would have like CNN and BBC, and then TNT and classic MGM. Like, so I would just repeat, you know, our songs, the Beatles, and it's so fascinating that how that kind of content, how it shapes your brain and your view on the world. But now, because of social media, you know, we were talking, and it can have the pros and cons. You can travel to a place, for example, if you were to go to my home country, and if you were to do something on food and showcase that this is the food from here, and if you're showing, versus if you were to do it from a different angle, people here or your friends or your community here would have that idea, oh, this is what Pakistan is like.
Yeah.
You know, now I think it's so powerful that we have these tools, that how you at 24 got your camera, went to Thailand, and you realized that you had this natural gift of photographing people.
Well, I don't know if it was that good back then.
No,
but I
but
know
now
I
it
liked
is.
it.
Like now it is. Like I've seen like sometimes, you know, some of the photos you take, there's an element of like photojournalism. Like, you know, it's the natural but beautiful, and you're catching people in their moments, like them being like, you know, it's like almost voyeuristic, but in the most beautiful way. Like you're catching people, like storytelling. Like I've found like your work, to as an outsider, I find it very poetic. Like even your your project that you did with Tellus, So going from high on life, because we do have high on life. I think we do have to talk about, like, you lost a few of your mates.
Yeah, no, of course, it's an important part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you want me to just kind of explain what happened?
Yeah.
Or yeah. So yeah, that's a great question, and it's probably one of the biggest events that shaped my life, because like I actually think that, like, I was born when I was born, but I think I was also like born when that went down, because it just completely changed uh, who I am as a person and how I set the rest of my life. So I haven't talked about this in a bit, but the guys that I was traveling with high in life, they showed me so much about the world and what was possible that I'd never really thought about before. Like, I was very like, I don't think I had big dreams before. I also, would let my own internal limitations kind of like decide where I was going to be. And like joining the Coast Guard and doing that, 4 years of school, I thought that was kind of going to be my thing, right? Like, even though I didn't love it, I was just like, this will do. Like, I got a pension, it's all cool. But I spent so many years traveling with them, and like watching them just over and over again, like break down what was impossible and make it possible through like going on these big trips and getting eventually to these 6-figure contracts by us just going on a cruise ship and having fun and shooting these videos. And I was just like amazed by them ability to reach out and make connections and bring in friends and include people and tell these stories. So yeah, I ended up quitting the Coast Guard and just spending my entire, life or travel life with them and working for them. And I thought that was going to be like what I would do. Like, I'll learn a bit from them, but like, I'm just going to be their right hand man for things, help their social media accounts, maybe learn a bit. And I loved them so much because they taught me so much. But in 2018, on a regular day, they were just going out with some other friends who they were actually vetting to maybe start taking over some of the being on camera stuff. These younger guys who I'm still very close with. They were just on this trip in Squamish and on a waterfall, and one of their girlfriends had slipped near the mouth of the waterfall, and in a complete freak accident. Like, she's someone that was very athletic and like capable, and she just took a misstep, and Lexi, her boyfriend jumped out after immediately and tried to save her, but just was in a situation where he couldn't grab onto anything. And then Riker, who was another member of High on Life, jumped in after him because they were like brothers, and all three of them lost their lives on that day. Actually, we're coming up on the 5-year reunion of that pretty quickly. So yeah, I lost some brothers, and they weren't just like my best friends, but they were my mentors. They were the people that I was building a life around, and they were like some of my biggest inspiration as well. So I lost a lot of people on that day. And then just the amount of people they connected with and like touched, it was a massive loss for so many people. But what I also like lost was my direction that I was going in, because I just working for them, and now that was kind of gone, and we did try to continue the High in Life legacy afterwards, but without them, who were really the brains of the business, we were pretty lost. And at that time, I didn't have the maybe the abilities or the vision or even the belief in myself I do now. That I had some ideas, but I didn't really have maybe the courage to step up and say, this is what we need to do. I let some other people that were given kind of like the roles by the parents to like continue on. And it was really challenging, because for a year after they passed away, we didn't really go in a direction that I thought was like authentic to them or authentic to their story. So there was a year of depression, and I just kind of like, I was a mess. Like,
because to lose 3 people
Yeah.
who you're, so I think when you travel with someone,
Yeah.
you get to know them so much more than sometimes even your family, because when you're on the road, you're having these experiences, they become your blood, they become your family.
We spent so much time together.
Going through the ups and downs and all these memories, and they were very young.
Oh yeah.
Like, how old were they?
I think they had just turned 30.
Yeah, I remember
maybe
it was
30,
in the
29,
news just before I think either I was already in Paris or I just left for Paris, or just before that.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about that.
29, 30, because I'm a year or two younger than them. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So, yeah, I'm not sure, like, I'm trying, like, for, if you want to talk about, like, what happened afterwards, or, like,
Yeah, like what was that like for you, dealing with that loss and then deciding what direction you want to go in?
yeah, so, yeah, this is actually a really good question, because after that, there was a lot of confusion and not knowing what I was supposed to do afterwards. And also, there was just all this, I never had a tragedy like that before happen in my life. So I think I didn't know what to do. I didn't really talk to anyone about it. I didn't really know how to get through it. And it just resulted in a lot of like drinking and destructive behavior. Just wasn't really in a good place. But eventually, it was like on New Year's Day, I just met someone that I was becoming friends with, and I found out they had lost their dad recently to cancer. And like, we were joking about death. I think if you ever lost anyone, making jokes about dark things can be a coping mechanism. And I found that came up in many ways, but we started joking about life and death, and then actually started sitting down and talking about what it was like. And that was the first time I really remember being able to be vulnerable and start talking about my feelings and opening up. And I just remember how good it felt to talk to someone that understood how I was feeling. Because like, I had lots of friends that were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss," but you can't talk to them about it. They have no idea,
no
right?
idea. I lost my mom 6 years ago, so she had just turned 52 2 days after her birthday. And everyone around me just, it's fascinating that, we talk about life, but it's like, I think in our culture, like from very young, in my culture, like we have an experience of death and what that is like. It's like a part of life, yet nothing prepares you, even though, and in your brain you think it's going to just, like, she's going to be there for me, like my mom was pretty much the primary parent, and there was no one. And I think like here and there people would hear I was going through this, so they would make sure to come and sit down with me, or even give me a book, or like write me a poem, because and my coping mechanism was working like crazy. I was working 16 to 18-hour days.
Yes,
on
100%,
set.
yeah.
And and I had no time to feel. And then 8 months later I moved to Paris, and it was just that all the sadness, it just like comes with you. And and you're just, and I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because we don't know who could learn from this.
Yeah.
Because I do think that grief comes in stages, and it's taken me like this long, like 6 years, to be like, even still, like the month of May can be challenging, because it's the Mother's Day and my mom's birthday and death anniversary. So my way of dealing is work.
Oh, I'm the same way. And I just like, I mean, I think grief, I've realized, is always going to be with me. I love them. It's always there. Sometimes like it comes and goes. Like, again, I haven't spoken about this in a while. And I can feel the sadness coming up, and it's just like, but I don't resist it anymore. It's like good. Like if I'm gonna cry, it's a good thing. It's usually like a release for me. But you're so right about, I am so busy all the time, and I'm not really trying to suppress anything, but it does, because I'm just like work, business. But like, again, like we were talking about earlier, I love to just be able to like unplug for a number of days and actually check in with myself and see how I'm actually doing, because in this busy culture that we currently live in, and being an entrepreneur or self-employed, you have to be busy, but like you also have to block time to see how you're doing and check in with myself. I think that's really important.
Completely. We were talking earlier about getting into coaching. I think that's something I'm really passionate about. I feel having a coach, and just someone who was, I used to teach yoga like back in the day. So I was, like in my Birkenstocks teaching yoga in the park, and I'm like one with the earth, and and then you're like, okay, yes, I have to pay my bills too. And it's like mixing the spirituality and the dreamer and the creative artist with the
Yeah.
with the world. So I was very grateful. I'm going to bring him on the show. His name is Vince Millardo, and he really helped me bringing my passion with like, what is your purpose? What is your mission? Like, what are you trying to do? Because I remember after stopping my show Life and Style with Zara, which I did like over a decade ago, I kind of had this depression almost, because that was the first national show I'd done, and my identity was so tied to that. And when I didn't have the kind of success that I imagined, it was like, and then I was going through a breakup. It was just like multiple things, and then not knowing what I was gonna do. So I started working with Vince, and that really helped shift me to be like, okay, I can actually take my skills and I can offer them as services and consulting.
Yeah.
So tell me about that, like, that period and working in, because now you're really thriving. Like, I see your work, and even from, to be honest, Justis, like meeting you in Uzbekistan, like you then and you now, it's like different energy.
I don't even know who I was.
Yeah,
at that
you're
point,
like, very different energy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also another thing that came from that. Like you said, like not, I don't want to say tragic or catastrophic, but a major event that happens, and it can be also like tragedy, but it can be a series of things, like something ending, a breakup happening, but like something that makes you take a look at your life and being like, wow, what is actually happening?
It's almost like a spiritual awakening.
No, I think that's a great way of saying it. No, I think that's awesome, the way you put it. I think prior to and around the time that we met and prior to their passing, I wasn't too sure about who I was. I was putting on a bit of a like a front. Maybe I wasn't comfortable in myself, or I would say, like, the easy way to put it, I wasn't being my authentic self. Like, I was like maybe a little bit louder because I felt insecure in situations, or maybe I was like had to be more attention. I don't know what it was. There's definitely some things in my childhood or something that I'm just trying to point out and figure out why I have certain, like, needs or attention needs or whatever. But after the whole like reset of them passing away and figuring out who I was like, I don't really want to be this person anymore. That, like, what's the point? I don't want to be this person that isn't truly me. I think I was just so exhausted and grieving and stuff that I just defaulted to just being myself. And it was such a beautiful thing for everyone, for myself, just to be normal, like, just like be calmer and be curious and not having to like be the center of attention. And so I think I'm glad that you recognize that 2019 Justis is different from now, because I think not that I would say it's an improvement, but it's just I feel more like I'm just me. Like, I just feel casual. I feel like it's not work anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's beautiful, and I can sense, like, just even sitting here, because even for me, like in my field, it's always sometimes even after a big day of working, I can have this, you are giving a performance, like whether this is like me, yet at the same time it's the energy output, but I really can sense you seem to have connected with your true essence, or like some potency. Let's talk about your work. You work with some amazing brands and created some beautiful images.
Did you want to talk about the life coaching thing at all, or
because
I didn't mention anything about that.
Yeah, tell me about that.
I was just going to say that was really important, and like, I think it's a great tool for people to jump into, or not jump into, but if they're looking for a direction to go in, because like I was really lost with purpose. Like you said, that was really important. After like they passed away, I wasn't really sure of myself. I didn't really know how creative I could be. I had a lot of imposter syndrome, and I wanted to like leave the company that was after High on Life, but I didn't know how, because I wouldn't have any money. I didn't really believe in myself. I was like, do I go back to the Coast Guard? But I somehow, through divine intervention, met someone hiking. There was mutual friends, and we hung out a couple times, and we had a connection just like as friends, but I really trusted them, and it turns out they were a life coach. And then we had like a introductory session. I was like, yes, hell yes, I need this. And she just called me out on my stuff. Like, she really just like put me, like, found out all the ways that I was just like being a yes man in my life, and I was really leaning into my imposter syndrome, and I didn't believe in myself, and all these things that people wouldn't think about me, but they're in the back end of like my programming. And she gave me the strength to see the bit of power and essence that I have within me to be able to step away from a very toxic situation with what was left about the high in life thing. And it was nothing to do with like any individual person. It was just like I was grieving and I didn't want to, if it wasn't going in the direction that really I wanted it to go in to help me remember my friends, then I was like, I have to separate myself for it. Otherwise it's going to be terrible. So I would say that I think that could have been either like years of therapy or it was like 3 months of like hard, actionable work and like doing homework, reading books, calling me on my stuff, exercises, a lot of spiritual stuff too that I wasn't used to, but I just surrendered to it, and holy crap, like it just like it saved my life almost. Like I don't think it saved my life, but it saved me so many. It put me right where I needed to be, which is like giving a little bit of ounce of believing in myself. And instead of going back to the Coast Guard, set me on this creative trajectory, which I had no idea what I was going to do because like I didn't really think much of my skills. I didn't have many skills back then as far as like creativity. So yeah, just one thing on life coaching. It was really important that I took that leap of faith with her.
It sounds very profound, and I feel like, especially post-COVID, I know in my friend female circle, like we have a lot of these conversations, but I really feel I'm enjoying seeing more men doing the work or like opening up to that part of themselves.
So important.
To go in and see how our childhood or how like the beliefs that we've been carrying or the putting on the show, because whether it doesn't matter, like if you're even for me, I can see that how I can put on this like face or like the mask or versus how can I show up and be more authentic, how can I open up my heart. So it's just great to hear, and I think it translates to work, because work as a creative person being self-employed, it's all about relationships.
Yeah,
it's 100%. All about like people, they're not asking for degrees. People don't hire me because I'm the best XYZ. It's the person that you are. Do you find
totally.
that's been the case? Like how has that been for you?
God.
Like getting into the coaching, going through this big loss that really shook you. And I think you could have gone either one way in a very like dark place or, overcome, which you have. And I'm sure there's times that you still, things come up for you. How do you feel this trajectory has been since coaching and then starting your own path of, being a DP, filmmaking, like you're catching a flight. We won't talk about the project, but you're working on some amazing projects.
Yeah. I think, there was a point where I was going down a dark road because of just I didn't know how to deal with it. And then I was able to open up and be vulnerable. And I think like, I'm so like you said, I'm so happy that it's become more normal for guys to like be able to open up and speak about things that have happened and just give them permission to download how they're feeling and really investigate that. Because I think growth from any standpoint starts with like just getting to know yourself and really being honest with yourself about like your shortcomings or your strong points or whatever. Just lay it all out there and see. And I just realized that I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I had a lot of like need for attention. I had a lot of like feeling like I just wasn't, I don't know how to put it, like I had really low self-esteem, which doesn't probably come out in like maybe like social settings, but I'm maybe good at hiding it. But when it comes to like working for yourself and being creative, and when you put yourself out on social media, you put a film out or something, you are exposing yourself. So if you don't feel like that is good enough, even though people love your work, you're like, I think it's crap, it's not good. You're blinded to like, maybe you're limited to where you can go, and I was blinded to a lot of the things I was doing. So like it was so the like you asked like how it was the trajectory, and the starting point was definitely doing the life coaching. That was the spark that really lit the fire to show me that there was a path that I could go on. And then what is a beautiful thing about working for yourself is you learn about yourself every step of the way. Like you come up against something and it's a mental barrier, and you have to investigate what that is, and you realize that it's just like, oh, that's my imposter syndrome coming up. How do I get through that? Or you start comparing yourself to others and you're like, that's really negative, I got to stop doing that. And you realize that like comparison is the thief of joy. I love that saying. And so as much as I've just learning about my own skills and creativity and growing my ability to tell stories or how to shoot, how to edit. At the same time, I've been learning more about myself and growing as a person, and I think that's reflected in my work.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like I a lot of the stuff I shoot is for me as much as it is for the client. Like I've made sure that I'm telling stories that I'm passionate about, that I'm curious about, that I have a lot of like that I want to learn more about, and so it's like stuff that I can also learn from, that the client will benefit from, and the world I think can benefit from. So there usually has to be like the love letter to BC video you're talking about. That's something that's been on my mind for a long time, about how much I love this province and how much it's done for me. And then, you know, out of the blue, Talis asked me to create a video like that. I'm like, okay, like this is perfect. And so I get to authentically sit down with a pen and paper and write out a story that I scripted, and they just greenlit it right away, and they don't let me do it. And I just like get to create something that I'm so in love with, because it's my true way that I feel about this province. Yeah. And like that project, as much as I'm sure Telus like got what they got out of it, I loved making it, right?
I feel like Destination BC, or like,
Yeah.
you know, is it Hello BC? I forget.
They're under the same.
Yeah, under the same. It's honestly phenomenal,
Yeah.
because it's a beautiful short film. You're narrating it, and with all these stunning clips
Yeah.
of like sunrise, sunset, you know, and I think there's some of your friends in there
Oh,
with
yeah,
you, and like
sure.
all these visuals. And I watched it last night, and I was like, wow, this is really beautiful, and I can feel your heart in that video, because you know, sometimes you can do something and you're like, okay, I just need to execute it and get this shot, versus when you're like truly passionate, you can see the passion in the work, whether it's just a photo or a video, you can see that. So I love talking to creatives, because being a self-employed person, it requires a lot of like discipline. Secondly, it requires a lot of coming up against yourself and your own limitations.
Yep.
And beliefs of like how far I think I can go.
Yeah.
I'm sure that working with Highlight on Life crew, like you mentioned, that it impacted, that you're like, wow, I thought I could never get paid for something like this, or can I live my life like that? So it probably helped break a lot of like glass ceilings. But then to go on your own, I think, is a completely different beast.
Yeah.
Because then it's just you. And I went through that like last fall, you know, leaving the corporate safe vault behind, because I did that for like a year and a half. I was like, okay, I'm a grown up now, and you know, I should like do this. And having turned 40 a few months into it, my cousin is an astrologer, and she left me like a 1 hour long like a download. Like she's really phenomenal. Like she's like, your calling is, you have to use your voice.
Yep.
You have to use your voice. And I think like coming from my culture, being a woman of color, like there's like a lot of things to that I think growing up I didn't get to use my voice. So now having to getting to do this show, acting or podcast or whatever things I've done, I feel like every time I do that, I overcome something, you know? And then when you're on your own, like how has that been for you, being on your own? You work with a life coach, and now you're working with all these amazing brands, but I'm sure you're still coming up against limitations and fears, because I feel like I come up against them all the time, and even the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And what do you do to get over that?
Well,
my long-winded
no,
question.
it's a great question. Like I mean, we could speak for so long about the journey of deciding to work for myself and then to where I am now, because like there's no number. I'm tenfold where I thought I would, you know, be when I first started working for myself. I was like, I just want to do a project where I get paid for my photography, and like, you know, eventually that happened. My first gig was like food photography or something like that, but like I never thought I'd be anywhere near where I am now. And I also know, you know, humbly, where this is just the beginning still. Like, I think what the High Life guys taught me, and I never really believed it fully, was like, nothing is impossible. There is no limitations to what we can accomplish. I think that like, I did have a very limited mindset, but they showed me through what they did, and I've showed myself through just sticking with it that I think I could. I don't think there's any limit to what I could do. Like I'm not putting any like ceiling on myself. I'm also like very understanding that like I may not make a feature film or something like that, but like I don't think it's impossible. So it's like almost great knowing that like if nothing's impossible, now I can just go have fun and create and see where I can go and like and go in my authentic way. So yeah, I think that like it was working for myself is the hardest thing that I've ever done. And I would say that anyone that is working for themselves or have done their own business or thinking about it has a lot of courage, and I commend them for it. And I think one of the things that like you were talking about finding your voice and like and you were someone that was younger that didn't have a lot to share, or maybe didn't have a voice that people maybe would listen to, but now you really want to give back to perhaps people that have the same feelings as you. Well, I eventually would love to just empower as many people as I can that maybe have that spark that I had to maybe what if I could do this? What if my dream was to go by myself and do this thing that I'm passionate about, and if I could just take those people and say, heck yeah, go do it. That's what I want to do for people, because like it's been a messy battle where I've wanted to quit multiple times, where I've had no money in my bank account, $25,000 in debt, like not having any clients. It's embarrassing when you can't even go out for drinks with your friends, and I'm 33 now, but like I really started going freelance when I was like 29, 30, and I still had like these side projects, so I wasn't fully behind the camera. I had like social media marketing, and like I was managing accounts and stuff like that. I don't know, stuff I didn't love to do, but yeah, I think that it's been such a journey about working through my own limitations, but never giving up on myself. And like I was such an undisciplined person before. Loved to drink Thursdays through till Sunday, and even throughout the week. My lifeline to my purpose was to spend more time with my friends, and just the work was just like a thing that helped me do that. And then once I started working for myself, I realized I want to build something, and I do believe in like I think what I realized was that the short-term happiness that I was having through like drinking and going on short trips and just being was not gonna spill into long-term happiness. And I realized that I had to sacrifice these little silly nights that were just like repetitive and whatever to put in the work and find that strength, and eventually that became my focus
discipline.
in life. Yeah, discipline.
It's discipline. Instant gratification versus the long term, is really, I think what you're doing, like in terms of your work, I remember seeing you did some stuff with Alberta, with their tourism, and did you like, or
I gotta check out my social media. It's been a minute. I don't look at it
because it was like lots of like ice, and you're like climbing, or
what was I doing? I was shooting films in Banff.
Okay.
It was in Banff.
Okay.
I never worked with their tourism group, but we were doing stuff for like Baffin and the different other outdoors companies. And there was that ice photo I think on there. That was between Jasper and Banff. Anyways, I love that location.
So what I love about your work is your passion for the outdoors. It translates in your work. And
absolutely.
It's like I've had friends of mine on the show who are like really into metal music, you know, and it's great. Like, and then they're traveling, and then they get to shoot their covers, and it's a very niche thing. You can't have someone who's like just a whatever, like baby photographer coming in to shoot like metal, like, and I think just like you, like the companies that you're working with, they're hiring you based on your work, and your work, when I see it, inspires me to get outdoors. Like when I see your social media, I'm like, oh my God, I haven't had that experience. Like, it's like on my list for this summer is that I want to wake up to the sun going up and be like in a sleeping bag or a tent, whatever, on like a mountain.
Beautiful.
Like
Let's go.
I've had, I'm just like, I want to have that experience where, Because before I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Nepal and I'll be in a tea house
Yeah.
and the Tibetan flags will be blowing in the wind.
I mean, that sounds
Versus,
good too.
yeah, that's like amazing. But I'm like, we have this right here. So I want to hear about, like, a lot of times, are you the one who's going out there pitching yourself? Are the clients coming to you? Or it's a bit of both? Because
Yeah.
I find the pitch meetings or the email pitch, or like when I do that, I always get nerves. But
Oh
now
man.
I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. Like, for example, I have a potential meeting for me taking a brand. I'm gonna be taking brands with me to Paris. I'm going to Paris in September for
Yeah.
Fashion Week. And I was like, okay, like, how am I going to do this? And inside, the logical voice can go on, but I'm
Yeah.
like, no, we are not going to listen to that.
Yeah.
We're gonna-
Yeah. That's a great question. So yes, definitely in the beginning of my freelance era, and even now, I had to do a lot of pitching, but like I didn't have a lot of work to show. So I would I think a lot of friends would like give me, like, I would probably lean more into my social media because I had a following, and maybe my work wasn't that incredible, but at least I had like the views and the impressions to leverage some work. So yeah, but like I would say a lot of my work came from, and I think this is so important, and I would love to write a book about this one day, is that I think most of my work just comes from me being like a good human. Like I think maybe I have this ability to like make people feel good or feel comfortable or warm around me, and people tend to remember me and think of me. And I've gotten jobs before and they hadn't even seen my work, but like, oh, this guy shoots, he's a great guy, go with Justis. And it's just like, and I think that's why a lot of clients would stick with me. So to answer your question, yes, I still do a lot of pitching. I don't love doing it because, again, I struggle from a bit of perfectionism. So I want my website to be perfect. I want, like, the email copy to be great. ChatGPT's been helping me out with that. But I think I'm at a point now, and I think for the bigger projects that I want to start doing, I have to create the treatments and the pitches for that. But a lot of this stuff has just been coming through word of mouth of people that have either seen my work, in my outdoor work, my social media, or just through people that I now know enough people that know about me and know that they can trust me, that they just throw me work.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that, because I don't think it's to do a ton with my skills. It's mostly to do with, like, people can trust me, and
your skills are pretty. Come on,
but I don't see it that way. So that, and it's hard to be.
Just
No,
take the
and I will,
compliment.
and I really do
really,
appreciate it.
It's so visually beautiful. Like, I actually am connected to some photographers. One who I met at UN Climate Action Summit, because I was covering that in New York, 2019, after Uzbekistan. I went there. And Roy, I can't think of his like last name right now, and he goes to Antarctica. He goes all over the world, and I admire his work and I admire your work. And I think your work, because you're taking, I think, like, going back to, I do feel your work has this voyeuristic type of feel that it brings me in. I feel like I'm seeing something that I would normally don't really get a chance to see.
Yeah.
But you're there and you're just taking us on this journey. I also follow, like, I think his name is Jimmy Chin.
Yeah. Oh, he's
Yeah,
like,
yes.
yeah. Well, he had
Okay,
a
see,
huge
I'm
effect on me.
comparing, because I
Yeah.
can see that, right?
Yeah.
Like, when I was really obsessed with going to Nepal, I'm still gonna go, but I would watch all these documentaries and these interviews, and I've connected with some professional alpinist, is that how you
totally
on social
Mountaineers,
media,
alpinists,
yes, exactly, on social media, because I think it's so amazing that these people, how passionately they talk about, and because climbing isn't just about the physical, it's so much in here, and then the training, and the determination and the dedication for that. And I would listen to, like, some women who would be like, oh my God, it's like a calling, like you get this calling when you're, so I find, like, when I see your work, and you are an ambassador for Arc'teryx.
Yeah, that's great.
Tell me about that. How did that come to be?
Honestly, that was, I would say, again, through connections. Like, my friend is a store manager at the Kitsilano location, and this is same manager, but it was a different location because they have a new store now. But they were just going through some internal rebranding about how they like presented their stores, and they just needed a quick 1 minute video on it. And like this is the beginning of my video, like kind of being able to shoot, and they just said, hey, well, we just use Justice, and they'd never seen any of my work. But again, a friend thought about me, and I came in there, and I worked my butt off to get it done, and it turned out to be okay, pretty good. And I ended up meeting their ambassador person, and we went for coffee, and they liked me, and they said, you want to be an ambassador? So like,
Brilliant.
there's no amazing story
Yeah.
behind it, but it's
Yeah.
again, the connection of people and the right time in the right place. But I also think that like, I think my social media and how much time I spent in the outdoors spoke to them as like, this
Yeah.
could be a good candidate for
Your
it.
passion translates, and I think what you were saying early, it's the energy, and whether sometimes the people meet us or not, I do believe energetically we are all connected.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether someone sees or not us or not, like even with you, like I was like your stuff, because of social media algorithm, like I liked a few of your things,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would come up, and I was like, I want to bring him here, I want to catch up, have you on the show, because I respect your work, I like what you're doing. It's even your pictures, I feel they're like, these very like, it makes me think of Roy.
Yeah.
I'll show you his work. His last name is like a G something, but he works for National Geographic,
I'd
and
love
like
to see it.
he's won like all these like awards and stuff. And he'll post videos with like polar bears, and like he's like in Antarctica.
Sounds
Again,
good.
very like voyeuristic. This filmmaker is bringing you in. I love like seeing that kind of content that really moves me.
Yeah.
What would you say have been some of the highlights of your solo career to date?
I think, honestly, I think I get a highlight like every week. Like, I just think that like
It's hard when you're like, okay,
well,
people are watching.
no, it's not at all.
No,
Like
no.
I there's so many highlights, because I think like the biggest highlight is just like being able to believe in myself, and like being on like this journey of being a solopreneur and like video maker. It's just like I've just been so much more comfortable with myself and done the work and like believed in myself, and it's unlocking the keys to the kingdom. You believe in yourself, and you realize there's no ceiling, and you actually are able to see the work for what it is. Like I know you're complimenting my work, but until like last like year, I didn't really think much of my work, but I just was able to like do the work to understand that it is good. Because sometimes when you're in the editing room, you're in a project for weeks or whatever, you're just happy to get it out sometimes. I mean, you've seen it 1,000,000,000 times, so it's hard to see it through a fresh set of eyes. But I've been able to figure out how to do that. And anyways, I think, yeah. So my own personal highlight is believing in myself, and like knowing that I don't think there's any limit to what I could do. It's just the discipline and the work that I put into it. And the other would be just like, I think, really being able to tell people stories. I've been doing these trail running 200-mile races where I film on these trails for 5 days. I get to sleep on the mountain. I'm not running with them, but I'm hiking up to vantage points and meeting them at sunrise
Like where
and sunset.
are you doing that, in BC or Alberta?
Washington, Lake Tahoe, and in Moab, Utah.
Wow.
So that was the 3 I did last year. I'm doing the first 200-mile race in Alberta.
I know. Whenever I'm talking to you, you're jumping on a plane. You're
I know.
like going somewhere.
I literally just got back, and that was like the life I've always wanted. But now I'm like, I kind of want to be home for like a week. To be nice.
Sleep in my bed.
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, another highlight would be like, I think it's just further carving my niche out. That's why I said like every week's cool, because like the closer and closer I get to these like ideal like clients and like working conditions and people that I get to interview, like the races that I did were so important to me, because the people that ran them have beautiful stories and whys about why they do these races, why they put themselves through these 5 days of grueling, like 200 miles is like 360-ish kilometers, and that's intense to do that and not sleep much. So it was understanding why they did it, and then I get to be in the mountains. I get to put myself through like long days of shooting, and then in the end you get to put a beautiful story that didn't have a ton of like creative limitations, and I'm flying my drone and everything, and I'm in a new location I've never been before. It's like, what else could you want for someone that loves to adventure?
Yeah.
And like, so highlights have been like, this every month is pretty cool, I think.
You have like moments of like, oh, I get to do this. Oh my God.
And it's great. And it's like,
yeah.
a year ago, I would be, if someone told me I was doing this stuff, I'd be like, BS, like this is gonna take 5 years to get there. And then it just like happens, and you're like, huh, And it doesn't happen through the ways you think it's going to happen. It just happens through random event or like all of a sudden. And so it's like I'm just in disbelief that I'm here being able to do these things because I never thought I was ever going to be close to being possible. I never thought I was going to shoot video 2 years ago. Like I only started shooting video like
I did not know that.
So I think June was like when I really started going freelance for my first time, June 2021, because I just checked actually when I bought my like really good camera. That's when I really started doing video, and when I got laid off because of some COVID stuff and these other like consulting jobs that I had. So like June 2021 was when I really just said, I'm only gonna shoot. I'm not gonna do any of this like, you know, consulting management type stuff. So I was doing photos before that, but that's when I started doing video. And so like now I'm making like these short films and stuff, and I'm 90% of my work or 95% of my work is filmmaking, and it's all through just like figuring it out and throwing yourself into the deep end and working through fear. So like I'm just like, I don't know, I'm just amazed by it. It's crazy. Yeah.
I feel I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but I'm getting that sense is that sometimes it's doing that inner work.
Oh yeah.
Looking at the inner barriers, the limitations or the ideas. Like if you go to my bathroom, like even on my fridge, I have like sticky notes of things that I say to myself. Like sometimes someone would be like, oh, did someone leave you this little love letter or this note? No, that's me talking to my inner child. Like on my phone, I have a picture of like the baby me. I'm like 2 years old. And when I look at myself and my eyes when I was a kid, because that kid is still inside, and to be like, I'm doing this for you, to make me proud, to make, you know, not for, and I think you were mentioning this earlier, and I want to talk a bit about social media, because it's such a powerful tool. Like I know for me, I think perhaps for you guys too, I got to travel to Uzbekistan and many of those countries that I traveled to when I was living in Paris because of my social media. And it allowed me to connect to the world. Yet at the same time, when my ego is very attached to like what everyone is saying or their perception of me, you know, I have to do things to keep that in check a bit.
Absolutely.
You know, and that people's ideas of me are just that, they're ideas, you know, and everyone can have something to say, whether positive or negative. And and I have to be okay with whatever happens, you know, and that's been a bit of my journey. Yet for me to remember that, you know, this is a beautiful tool that I get to use. And, you know, from back in the day, we had like, you know, people barely go to see movies anymore, you know, and it's like you're getting to make these movies and like, you know, short films, and like the one that I saw last night that I was like, wow, that's so beautiful. I would love to do something like that, you know, is what I'm thinking. I'm like, I want to copy what he's doing.
Totally.
I want to make, because you're inspiring me, and you don't know who you're inspiring by putting your work out there. You know, we are inspiring each other, you know, through that. And I think, so how do you feel like social media has impacted your life and your world?
Oh, it's been a huge part of it in great ways and in negative ways. If you go through the timeline of High on Life, going from not having any social media to being on a YouTube channel that has tens of thousands, eventually 600,000 followers, and then like my Instagram account going from 320 followers to like eventually 50,000 followers or 40,000 followers. I can't remember what I had. It feels good to be all of a sudden like have this attention on you, for people to know your name, to people be excited for what you post, to comment on your stuff. Like it was such a, you know, I think for anyone it feels good to almost be like semi-famous or just well known for a bit. Like there's a point that like we actually like signed autographs on these road trips. I was like, what am I doing? And we're like, we were very low key, but we never talked about that kind of stuff. Like we didn't really care about it. But in my mind, like I was like, this is cool and this feels good. But then, you know, when you start sharing stuff on social media and wanting to feed that machine or that beast, it gets addictive. And I just realized that I think a lot of my happiness was tied to how, well something performed and how many people connected with it or how many DMs I was getting. So without realizing, the algorithm in some ways was like dictating how good I was going to feel about my week because about things sharing. And I think that I eventually just realized that I didn't want to be on all the time. And I didn't want to always have to like scramble together a post just to feel relevant. And slowly and surely, I've just kind of like fallen a little bit off of social media. I still use it a lot to like connect with people and send dumb memes to people and look at raccoons because I love raccoons. Anyway, you should see my front page. It's really funny. But I think that was the relationship of having a lot of attention was fun. And there was negative aftermath of like realizing that I had to feel like I had to be fulfilled, that I had to really feed that beast. And then it was the understanding of that afterwards being like, no, I want to find my happiness and contentment from not the external validation. And that's something that I learned, actually something I learned from somebody that I met when I was filming about, he doesn't care about external validation. He just wants to be happy for himself. And that really stuck with me. And so now I really look to not have to get any fulfillment from social media, but I still like to share stuff, and I know how valuable a tool it is, and I love to connect with people. I love when I share a cooking video. People
I was just gonna say you were making dal. You were making dal, or like you were making. I was like
cow soy. There was a Thai dish.
Okay, or like I was some sort of curry that I was like, huh, you're
so,
like cooking.
No one. I mean, this is gonna be the next episode of Justis, which is like after the filmmaking gets it going. I want to get back into social media by cooking a lot of food and cooking on mountains and everything like that. But like it hasn't felt natural yet because I've been so tied into figuring this part of my career out. But I know that is going to come. But I feel so much better about it now because I don't care if it gets X amount of views versus I don't want to go viral even. I don't want a bunch of attention. I don't like what happens when people go viral because
and it puts the pressure of like having to like get that again.
Yeah, like if a video went viral, it'd be fantastic, more people, but like through more views comes more people and more negativity. Like even like I kind of just like I like feeding content to the people that are really already in love with my stuff and that I have good connections with, and I'm happy to grow because that, I guess, from a business standpoint, that's a good thing, and you can reach more people, but like. I think the stuff that I want to create is either going to make people feel good, help them live like better lives, or teach them to maybe go down a similar path and give them the energy that I needed to go forward and pursue their wildest dreams, right? I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be someone that can provide good things to people. And I don't want to add to the distraction of wake up in the morning flipping through your phone and it's been like half an hour and you started your day with trash. Like if you're gonna see a video of mine, I want it to be a good waste of your time or good like provide value to your life.
Well it did for me, and I need to show it to Tiara afterwards because it's like it made me it warmed my heart. It's like I was brushing my teeth, I'm like okay, checking your Instagram, going through, and I was like, oh wow, this is so beautifully done, and even the font, and you're narrating, and even
thank you. I took so long to find that
really
font.
I know.
I'm not graphically inclined.
Look at me.
I'm not graphically inclined, so I was like I had to go through like everything, and then I was like this is one.
And even the tone of your voice, it's very like it made me sit back and like listen. Like I had to stop what I was doing and like listen, what is he saying? And of course you're a storyteller, so I want to hear, what advice would you give to someone who is wanting to break into the social media sphere? Because it's like you started with the High on Life guys that had a big impact on social media. Now you branched out on your own. You've traveled to a lot of different countries. How many countries have you been to in total?
Not as many.
You don't even count.
Not as many as you'd think, because like I don't know. I think it's under 20. It might be 20. I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, I love traveling, but usually there's been long trips to countries instead of like little micro trips all over the place. So like I'll get back to you on that number, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think you need to join the Explorers Club. Like I had earlier, Nicole Watson, who's a really dear friend of mine, and her and she's part of this Explorers Club, where like it's astronauts and professional.
That would be very cool.
You know, I'll take a look and maybe I can see if I can connect you guys.
I was gonna also say that with all your guests you have on the show, you should do like a social hour or something.
Yes,
that you just meet all the people.
get
Because I'm sure that there's a lot of connections that you could,
for
foster through that.
Completely,
Yeah.
completely. Maybe I should do that for my birthday. So that will be a reason for people to come. We will do it here.
Yeah.
And I think what's fascinating is that a lot of people I feel very blessed are doing very amazing things where I watch as a cheerleader and then it also inspires me. One of the conversations that I've loved having on the show is, I remember being when I was much younger, that inspiration would go on the negative side where it was like on the envy side where it's like, why don't I have that? Versus now to be like, oh my God, like,
that's beautiful.
Dude, that is so cool. Like, to be like, I want to learn. How did you do that? Or like, tell me what inspired you. Because every emotion can, just like with social media, everything can have its light and dark.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about these things. And I've talked about this with other female actresses because being a woman, and then age and beauty standards and all that stuff. It's, when I used to model or as an actor, you're always putting yourself and like it's based on your looks and right away as soon as someone sees you they're gonna have an idea of you. What category are you in?
Oh yeah.
What is the versus how can I make this positive? How can I use that as an inspiration and be like, I want to bring my friend in or this person who I want to connect with. I'm like, yeah, I love what this person is doing. Be like, what gets you out of the bed?
Yes. I mean, what's the question really? Like,
is that something that you've come across like in your life in the past? Like, some of these, has envy or any of that?
Oh,
like,
yes, absolutely.
Competition, like something you've struggled with?
I actually had, at a point, I had to not unfollow, but like mute people because I was in such a rut in my not getting any work, and my friends were traveling the world and getting these big projects that mentally I had to like mute them. Not that I don't love them, I just didn't. I was so envious and so upset. Well, not upset, but I'm upset with the way that things were going and things weren't lining up for work or wasn't doing anything that I was passionate about. And like, they were in some country traveling the world, and just for my own mental health, I just had to mute it because I couldn't see every day that they were just crushing it, and it was hard for me. And that's something I need to work through, is just being able to celebrate. I think actually more so now I'm able, because I'm much more content with what's going on. I'm able to celebrate people more. But when I was wanting to quit and when I was not having a good time, I found it really hard for me to watch other people, because all I wanted was to have stable income, not be in debt, and to be working on things and having constant work that was coming in. And like other people had it, but I just started freelancing. So what do you expect me to just like have work right away? No, of course not.
It takes the time and energy and effort. And I think it's just beautiful to be able to talk about that because it's reality and it's very human.
Yeah.
And I really, when I see now, I'm not sure exactly when this shifted for me, but it has in the last 5+ years, that even if they don't even engage with my content, if I see like something, even if I can feel like a tinge of like, oh, I want that. And I was like, no, man, that is amazing. I was like, just see it, because also to the universe, I'm saying, I want that.
Yeah.
Get me some of that.
Yeah.
And like really high-fiving and being like, oh, wow, your film is doing so great. You booked that role, got that recurring series or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You got that client. That that is coming from me too, and it's in my periphery because it's in my energetic field, and the universe is bringing it to my attention. And I've had to like be like, yes, the universe wants me to have this.
Yeah.
What do you do for self-care?
Oh Jesus.
Totally.
Well, not comparing myself to others is a good start.
Yeah.
I think like as soon as I kind of realized that like I can do anything I want to, I just have to put the work in. That I was like, oh, I don't have to like, compare myself, because if they're doing this great thing, then I could do that too. I just have to put the work in. But self-care, baseline starts for me with fitness and being an active, and thankfully with my job I get to do a lot of that. But like I have to be very active all the time. That just sets like the foundation of my entire being and happiness. And I think just for my mind, it just is always a great way for me to start the day or release anything that's going on in my life. I generally eat pretty well, but it's hard to do that on the road all the time, especially in the States, because moving quickly and being in America is sometimes not the
In-N-Out
easiest.
Burger.
No, I mean, you saw it on my story probably. That's what I was doing. That is, yeah, I love to eat right. I love cooking, obviously, so I'm at home. I can really balance that out. I think that I think the biggest thing that helps me is just being self-aware and being cognizant of like how I'm feeling and avoiding burnout. Balancing time with people that I love, my family, my niece and nephew, my very close friends, my ride or dies, as I call them. Being in nature is really important to me, and not being in nature where I'm working, because sometimes I'm just so focused on the work, it's not the same experience. But just going for a bike ride around the seawall, or going for a trail run or something like that, or just hiking to a mountain, it doesn't have to be a massive undertaking. Just there's that disconnection from the city, or the vibration, Wi-Fi, whatever you want to call it, that happens in these cities, but it's just different when you're out there. Having a day on the beach. So I think it's like really important for me to maintain my work and know that stable income is coming in, because I think that's really important in the back of my mind to always know that I'm going to be looked after. I can look after myself, and eventually I'd love to raise a family and be able to take care of them. But then just balancing that with like having a clean house, a good healthy body, eating right, being mindful, and then like constantly learning about like different things. Like we were talking like maybe about like Huberman podcasts and like things about having a proper morning routine and understanding like different effects of certain
Like,
things.
I want to talk about your
substances,
morning routine on here, because your morning routine was inspiring me.
Okay, yeah.
And, I was mentioning earlier when you first came in that every day I have the intention, I'm going to go to my balcony right away. I'm going to do my 5-minute journal. I do my gratitude meditation first. Then I do like, not like I'm listening to anything, but I just sit down, close my eyes, and I'm, feeling the gratitude. And then I like to do visualization, but the aim is to do it daily. It doesn't happen daily, and it's not a 20-minute thing. It's normally just a couple of minutes. But there's something about having the phone, because my alarm is there.
Number one thing. I will preach that to death.
So tell me about your routine.
I actually want to, if you're interested, I want to give you a book that I'm rereading again right now that is so important.
Please.
I think about it's called, oh God, I can't remember what it's called. Okay, I'll remember what it's called. It's on. I something heard about the Rich Roll podcast.
Yes.
He had a guest called Jonathan Hari, and it's all about the effect of like social media, and like, we won't get too deep into it about like how businesses have taken psychologists and engineers to, it's called stolen focus, to capture our attention and to make us just like, with no moral compass, they just make us so addicted to our phones. And it's not like a conspiracy, it's real. And it's just like so eye-opening. And that's another reason why I've been like staying a little bit further away from social media, because I don't want to, it's really, you have to have discipline to not be in the cog or the machine that they've created for you. But if you're talking about morning routines, the number one thing that I recommend for everyone, and it's really hard to do because I will break it all the time, is do not sleep with your phone in your room. Don't do that. Do not go to bed with it. Go to bed with a book, or just lay there and go to sleep. And it's not easy sometimes, because sometimes you don't want to be alone with your thoughts. It's easier just to scroll, but the phone does not enter the bedroom. I actually have this janky iPhone 6S that I have reset completely. It has no photos, has nothing on it. I don't think you can connect to the internet properly, but it has an alarm clock with these sweet little birds that chirp and gently, I like it. So, and I'm not, there's no like opening it up and flicking it. I'll just click it so it turns off.
See, that's the thing for me.
Yeah.
I will see all these notifications popping up.
No.
And
go to bed with airplane mode.
Okay.
Go to bed with airplane mode.
All right, I will do that. And the other thing you were saying to me about was the dopamine hit that you have in the morning, because it's like, oh, this person left me a voice message or comment or this email, and I need to open this. And every day I have the good intention of like, no, I'm going to journal right away. I'm going to be grateful. Like, connecting to the universe.
Yes.
And every day I break that promise.
So I've learned so much from the Huberman podcast because he is someone that, studies neuroscience and really understands human behavior, but he's also is able to deliver in a way that is palatable and has some really amazing guests. So like I have spent the last year and a bit like power listening to his things. I've learned so much from his episodes about my brain and about how I should like carve out my morning routine and how my phone affects me. And like, I stopped drinking coffee. I won't drink any more coffee after noon anymore because of the half-life of coffee will be in your bloodstream and you will sleep. Exactly. So I don't get to do too crazy with it, and here's the thing, I was up for 20 hours the other day shooting. I was drinking Red Bull at 8 p.m. So I break the rules.
Yeah.
I break them all the time. But like ideally, if I can have a choice, I will follow certain protocols, as he calls it. And did you want to hear about the ideal morning routine?
Please tell me the ideal morning routine.
So because I love talking about this because when it's dialed in, it really works. But if it's not, like right now, I don't have a great routine because I just got back from my last trip and I'm packing, so like I'm just like I'll probably have coffee tonight because I gotta pack quickly or whatever. But to me, the morning routine starts the night before, and that starts with giving yourself at least an hour with no phone, even dimming the lights in my house, not watching a screen. And the way that my mind works is because I've kind of been tested. I think I have some on the spectrum of ADHD somewhere along there because it sounds like I have a lot of things similarity to other people that have it. So I don't know how to call it, but I need to know what I'm doing in a very structured way the next day. And if I wake up in the morning and I've looked at my phone, my mind will be scattered and I almost have like mental fatigue where I don't know where to allocate my time. So the night before, I write down the most important tasks that I have to do, whether it has to do with business, personal life, my home and keeping it clean, or like maybe the back end of my business, or health and fitness. So I will like map out my day or calendar my day out and just put it down. So when I wake up in the morning and I've had whatever crazy dream and I wake up, I can just look at this piece of paper or digital thing and I know exactly what I have to do because it's like a message from the night before and I know exactly. I feel like I'm set up for the day. I go to bed with my phone in the other room in airplane mode. So when I go into the other room, even if I open up my phone, there's nothing that has gone in. And do not disturb is wonderful, but things still can get in there. There's still shows notifications and stuff like that. So the airplane mode is just like that is the firewall from the rest of the world. Because I might still use my phone to like reference something or look at a photo or whatever, but like I try not to go on my phone for the first hour or 2 hours of my day. It really helps if I just wake up and go straight to the gym, go do a hard workout for 45 minutes.
And still no phone.
Still no phone. Oh, never.
What about music?
No. Oh, because I'm usually in the fitness class.
Okay.
Yeah. But the good thing about your phone being in airplane mode, if you have downloaded playlists on Spotify, you can still listen to music, but
it's almost like you're open for ideas to come in versus like when I have the stuff, my brain is already my focus is scattered.
Yeah, but also what I've learned through just testing it out, I don't really run with AirPods in anymore because that is the time where I want to download and think about things. When I'm on a trail run, when I'm on riding my bike, when I'm on a hike, especially if I'm not with anyone, music is a distraction. Music, even though it pumps you up, you're still you'll be in deep thought and then a song will pull you out of it. Especially if you listen to a podcast. I do listen to podcasts a lot and during that time because maybe I'm really excited about listening to an episode. So that time will be dedicated to listening to this episode. But there are times where I can notice my mind drifting out to thinking about my life and looking at different areas of it. And then I'm like, that's the time to take it out, put my AirPods away and just exist and just let my mind flow into the areas that it needs to do.
I love that.
Because we spend so much time thinking and planning and, reacting to things because, you're a business owner, you got to react to this notification, you got to organize this, you got to produce this show, you got to make sure that I'm going to show up, like things like that. Like, but if you don't give yourself that time, at least like once a day or at least a number of times a week to actually like do nothing and no scrolling and just exist, then you're not going to have time. You have to have that time to like download all your thoughts and check in with yourself and see how you're doing. Yeah.
I really, really love that. It's interesting because the other day, like I feel like I'm telling on myself, like I have have a beautiful patio, and I go sit there, and I have this bouncery, which is like flute music,
Yeah.
from my part of the world. And there's something about it makes me emotional when I listen to it. And I'm like, okay, there's the moon. I can see some stars are out. And I'm just looking, this is so lovely. And
Yeah.
and then the phone, I can feel like the need to like, oh, I need to share this with someone.
Yeah.
And even though a part of me knows that maybe it would be really good, like I would get creative ideas. I get creative ideas when I walk a lot, because there's something, I'm really into walking. Like the other day, it's just like 15K, it's like just like a piece of cake, it's like I'm just walking everywhere. I digest my day, information that comes in,
Downloading.
yeah. I really love what you're saying about letting yourself be. For me, that happens when I'm doing morning pages, when I do pen to paper, and anything that comes to mind, like Julia Cameron talks about it a lot.
I've Artist Way, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I love it. I haven't fully ever
I've
I
never
have ADHD. I think
I've
I'm
never
ADHD.
finished it. I've never finished it. But you said you leave little notes for yourself in the washroom. I have this one that's directly from her book in my truck, and it's just about like something about like being okay with, you're not going to be perfect all at once or whatever. But it was Julia Cameron, and I had that plastered on my truck it's still there. It's just not as relevant as it used to be, but it was something that I was really working through. So morning pages are an excellent way to download things. Yeah.
And just like getting it out doesn't matter. It's like the to-do list or your feelings about
something. No judgmental, just get it out.
Yeah, and it's interesting, all this debris that can be within. But I'm going to try this, because I feel like I love what you're saying about having it on airplane mode, disconnected from Wi-Fi, and I'm going to try it tomorrow.
Have you? And please let me know how it goes. Have you ever listened to? Oh, geez, I'm sure you have. I can't remember all these amazing audiobooks that I have downloaded. Atomic Habits.
James I have Clear. It downloaded. James Clear. I haven't finished it.
Okay, that was a game-changing book for me, and I've listened to it at least 2 times now, and I would recommend it to anyone that is like even starting their own business or running their own business, who just wants to organize their life a little bit better. Just building, because that was like my start of my discipline journey, was trying to figure out these systems to work with my mind and everything. But one thing he mentions in the book is to make it easy. And what I realized, that like there is no shame in realizing that we are addicted to our phones. It is something that is actually out of our power. It's been designed, these apps and these programs and these notifications have been specifically organized and tested on humans to make it so addictive that it's actually unfair. So if it's fine to admit that you have a problem. I still go to the bed with my phone, because I've had such a draining day, and I just want to just zone out.
Yeah.
Or I just want to zone out and have a hit of dopamine and see some funny cat videos or something, and I'll just go. But I know it's not good for me, but I still do it. But what I mean is, when I'm locked in and I have a proper routine, phone does not come into my room, and it's so important for me. And when I say make it easy, I put it in another room, so it's not next to me, and so it's easy for me to not break the rule, because it's in a drawer somewhere. Or sometimes I go to my truck downstairs and put it in the glove compartment, lock it, and there's such a barrier of like, I'll have that urge to like look at my phone, but now I have to go downstairs. I'm in my PJs, or I have to go into my truck. I'm like, nah, I'll just do something else.
It's so interesting, because they talk about how your morning sets your day. So for example, like making your bed. I think there's even a book called the power of like making your bed, or like first thing in the morning, because it's like accomplished. Yes, you have that one thing that is just like done. We've heard some really fantastic things. The show is called The Inspired Life Vancouver.
Yeah.
This is a very big question. I know I've heard a lot of things from you today, but what inspires you in life, or where do you draw inspiration from?
Biggest thing that I draw inspiration from right now is people that they're living in their purpose and are really unlocking the power that their mind has to either battle through physical pain or limitations they put on themselves, and just like people that are willing to work through the fear or through the pain or through the hardship, and pushing through where our minds can go, and using them to close to the fullest ability. So if I can put that into context, I've really been inspired by these ultra marathon runners where, I thought people that, ran these things, these 200 miles, were just insane people, like these crazy people. They realize they're just people that have lived incredibly interesting lives, and they have this ability and this desire to test their mental limits and go to battle with their mind and go out there and say when they want to quit, to realize that they say, no, I'm going to go push a little further. I'm not going to quit. And I really am inspired by people, like you said, Jimmy Chin, from people that really are able to put themselves into challenging situations and work through the mental hardships and staying calm and solve problems. And I think when you voluntarily go out into the mountains, or these races, and you challenge yourself mentally, you go through these, you face your demons in the face, you face yourself in the face. I think that prepares you to face other problems that you're going to have in your own life. And so it's almost like training for life, training for other hardships that might happen. You're training yourself for challenging situations or decisions that you have to make. So right now, the people that inspire me the most are the ones that are voluntarily going out and pushing their own limits and discovering who they are and what their limitations are. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Is there a particular spot in the city or surrounding areas that you like to get to get inspired, or a place that you go to when you need to disconnect?
Anywhere outside the city, like the mountains, you can go as far as or as close as Mount Seymour and sleep. I love sleeping on one of the peaks of Mount Seymour that's outside of the park. I think outside of the city, I grew up on a oops, touching the mic. I grew up on a Gulf island called Galliano Island, and we still have the family home that we built there. It was rented out for a number of years, but my family decided to take it back. So it's in the middle of nowhere on an island that barely has no internet, and I go by myself there quite a lot to cook a bunch of crazy meals, but also just to be by myself. And that's where I'll do my 48-hour unplug from screens and the internet and everything and social media, and just be with myself and go on these walks and stuff like that. And to me, once I'm there, I'm transported to a place that's not even in Canada or in, near Vancouver. I'm in my own little, part of the world that you can't reach. It's amazing. So that's where a lot of inspiration or ideas will come from, but also downloading of reflection. How is everything going in my life, and how am I feeling about everything that's going on?
And then looking at where you want to go.
Physically?
No, in
Oh,
life.
yeah, exactly. Yes,
No,
exactly.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, because you get it. We work hard, and sometimes you can just get caught in the
doingness.
In the doingness, and then not being able to I love the analogy of you're in the forest and you can't really see where you're going, but just take a little time to walk up the mountain, saying, "Oh no, I want to go over here. This looks good." And then you get back in the forest and you go navigate through it again. So yeah, just having some direction is really helpful. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I feel like we can talk about so many different things.
Oh, we could have gone down any of those rabbit holes forever.
Lots of different things to cover. I knew my instinct to get in touch with you to bring you on was correct, and I need to implement this morning routine. At least I will for tomorrow, and then I will message you to let you know how it goes.
Yes, yeah. Baby steps, though. Just start small with the phone thing. I think it's really important, and try just doing a week of it.
Yeah.
And realize that there's no big fires that you really have to put out before 9 or 10 a.m. depending on who you're working with or whatever. But we think there are. So give it a go. Let me know how it goes.
I will, certainly. Thank you so much, Justis. And I can't wait to see what's in store in the future. And thank you for inspiring me. You truly inspired me today. And if you guys were feeling inspired, make sure to get in touch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.